The grand hall was alive with music, laughter, and the clink of champagne glasses. It was the night everyone had been waiting for, Clara's wedding. Guests in elegant suits and sparkling gowns filled the room, their faces lit up by the soft, golden glow of chandeliers above. The air was thick with excitement, a day that marked the beginning of a new chapter for Clara and her fiancé, Michael. Clara stood at the front of the hall, her delicate fingers trembling as she adjusted the veil that cascaded down her back. It was the most beautiful dress she had ever worn, white silk with intricate lace designs that shimmered under the lights. Her cheeks were flushed with a nervous glow, but her eyes told a different story. There was something haunting behind them. Her gaze flickered between the people seated in the audience, each face a blur. Her mind was elsewhere, lost in the maelstrom of emotions she was trying to keep at bay. Michael, her soon-to-be husband, stood beside her. He was tall, handsome, with a charming smile that had captivated her the moment they met. His strong hand held hers, his grip steady and reassuring. But tonight, even his warmth seemed to do little to ease the fear gnawing at her insides. Clara's breath came in shallow bursts, and for a moment, the world around her felt distant. Her fingers brushed against the edge of the altar, her mind racing. How had she ended up here? She wasn't supposed to be standing at this altar, pledging her life to someone she didn't truly know. The truth was, she wasn't sure of anything anymore. The past few months had been a whirlwind, too fast, too much. Now, in the most public moment of her life, she felt trapped. As the priest began to speak, Clara's attention wandered. Her gaze shifted to the large windows behind the altar, where the night sky lay in quiet contrast to the chaos inside. She could hear the faint rustle of wind outside, a reminder of the freedom she once had. She closed her eyes for just a moment, hoping to silence the voice inside her head, but it was relentless. She had come so far, but in that single breath, doubt seemed to flood her entire being. "You may now exchange vows," the priest's voice rang out, snapping Clara from her trance. She turned to Michael, who was already looking at her with such tenderness that it almost made her feel guilty. His eyes sparkled with excitement, with love. He was ready for this. But was she? She couldn't tell him the truth. She couldn't let him know what she had been hiding. Clara's mouth went dry as she tried to remember the words she had rehearsed so many times. Her heart hammered in her chest. The room, once vibrant and full of energy, seemed to have grown eerily silent, as if time had slowed down. Her hands trembled even more, the fabric of her dress brushing against her skin like a whisper. "Clara, my love," Michael's voice broke through her thoughts. "I promise to stand by you through thick and thin. I will love you in all circumstances, forever." The crowd let out a soft murmur of approval, and Clara's chest tightened. This was the moment. This was where her life would change. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Panic rose within her. She had to say the words, had to go along with this, but she couldn't. Not when everything inside her screamed for her to stop. The priest gave her a gentle nudge. "Your vows, Clara." Her throat constricted. The words were on the tip of her tongue, but they didn't feel right. Not here. Not now. Suddenly, her vision blurred. Her legs felt like lead, and she grasped onto the altar for support. The floor beneath her seemed to sway. Her heartbeat quickened. Michael looked at her, his face shifting from one of love to confusion. "Clara," he whispered, concern creeping into his voice. Her mind raced. She could feel herself slipping, spiraling out of control. The wedding was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. But it had turned into a suffocating cage. She opened her mouth, her voice barely audible. "I can't." Before she could say more, her knees buckled. The world went black. Everything around her crumbled into a blur of movement. She felt hands on her arms, lifting her, but it didn't matter. She couldn't hold herself up. Her vision flickered between the faces around her, Michael's, his expression one of complete shock. Her mother's, filled with panic and fear. The guests had no idea what was happening. The elegant facade of the wedding suddenly shattered, replaced by chaos. Her body was rushed off to the side, away from the altar, as the murmurs of confusion and concern filled the room. Is she okay? What's happening to her? What's wrong with Clara? The voices buzzed in her ears, but Clara couldn't respond. Her limbs felt heavy, and her mind felt distant, as though she were floating outside her own body. She could hear the frantic whispers, the questions. But Clara's mind wasn't on them. It was on the secret, the dark truth, that had weighed so heavily on her for months. The truth that had followed her, even here, into this room full of people. And it was about to come out. The aftermath. When Clara woke up, she was in a dimly lit room, her head pounding. The first thing she noticed was the cold, sterile smell of the hospital. The second was her mother's face, a mixture of worry and relief, hovering over her. Clara, sweetheart, are you okay? Her mother asked, her voice trembling. Clara blinked, trying to focus, but everything felt blurry. What happened? You collapsed at the altar, her mother replied, her voice shaky. We were so worried. Clara's heart lurched. The wedding, Michael, had it all been a dream? She had barely been able to grasp the reality of what had happened before she had blacked out. It had felt so real, so overwhelming. Where is Michael? Clara asked, her voice hoarse. He left. After you fainted, he just left. Clara's stomach dropped. That wasn't like Michael. He was supposed to be the one who would stay by her, through thick and thin. Why had he left her like this? But then again, could she really blame him? What had she expected? She had been hiding the truth from him, from everyone. And now, it was too late. The secret she had been carrying for so long was finally going to come to light, no matter how hard she tried to bury it. I need to talk to him, Clara muttered, trying to sit up, but her body felt weak. Her mother gently placed a hand on her arm. Not now, honey. You need rest. Clara closed her eyes, feeling tears well up inside her. The man she was supposed to marry was gone, and with him, the last shred of hope that everything could be fixed. But she knew deep down that this wasn't the end of the story. No, this was just the beginning. The dark secret she had been hiding would soon be exposed. And there was no way to stop it. Clara's mind was a whirlwind of confusion and fear. She sat up slowly in the hospital bed, her body aching from the sudden collapse at the wedding. The sterile white walls felt like they were closing in around her, trapping her in the reality she had spent so long trying to avoid. Her mother's voice echoed in the background, but Clara couldn't focus. Honey, we need to talk. About everything. Clara closed her eyes and took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. She had known this moment would come eventually, but that didn't make it any easier. She had spent years building the perfect life, carefully constructing a facade that no one had ever questioned. And now, with the truth hanging over her like a storm cloud, it all seemed to be falling apart. I don't know how to fix this, Mom, Clara whispered, her voice barely audible. Her hands were trembling as they gripped the edge of the hospital bed. I don't even know if I can. Her mother took a seat next to her, the concern in her eyes shifting to something else, something darker. Clara, you need to face it. You can't keep running. You've been hiding it for so long, but the time has come. The truth is out, whether you like it or not. Clara's heart skipped a beat. She couldn't avoid it anymore. The secret she had kept buried for so long was finally going to come to light, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. I never wanted this, Clara said, her voice cracking. I never wanted to hurt anyone. But I didn't know how to tell him. I didn't know how to tell Michael. Her mother's expression softened, but there was no denying the disappointment in her eyes. Clara, you've hurt him by not being honest. You've hurt yourself. You can't pretend everything is fine when it's not. You need to face what's happened, and you need to face him. I can't, Clara said, shaking her head. I can't look him in the eye. Not after everything I've done. Her mother reached out and gently touched Clara's hand. You don't have a choice anymore. He deserves to know. You can't run from it. The room was silent, save for the faint beeping of the heart monitor beside Clara's bed. She swallowed hard, trying to control the lump in her throat. She had never felt so small, so powerless. The weight of her secret was crushing her, and now it was too late to take it back. Michael's disappearance. While Clara lay in the sterile hospital room, Michael was at home, pacing restlessly. He had left the hospital without saying a word to anyone. His mind was a storm of confusion, anger, and betrayal. When Clara collapsed at the altar, his world had shattered. The woman he was supposed to marry, the woman he thought he knew better than anyone, had completely lost herself in front of him. But it wasn't just the collapse that had confused him. It was the moment before, when she froze up, her expression unreadable, as if she was somewhere far away. And the vows. The vows she hadn't spoken. It was like a door closing, a final signal that something wasn't right. Michael couldn't understand why Clara had fainted. Why hadn't she said anything? Why had she hidden it all? They were supposed to have been a team. He had been by her side through thick and thin, and yet, she had kept something from him. The truth was, he didn't even know who Clara was anymore. He found himself sitting on the edge of the couch in their living room, his mind spinning. Clara's collapse, her silence, her strange behavior, it all pointed to something deeper. Something she had been hiding for a long time. Michael's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of his phone ringing. He glanced at the screen, seeing his mother's name. "Hello?" he answered, his voice hoarse. "Michael, where are you?" His mother's voice was full of concern. "I heard about what happened. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Michael replied, his tone sharper than he intended. "But Clara isn't. I don't know what's going on with her." "Have you spoken to her?" His mother's voice softened. "You need to go to the hospital, Michael. She needs you now more than ever." He hesitated. He didn't know what to say to her. How could he face her after what happened? What if she didn't love him the way he thought? What if everything was a lie? "I don't know, Mom. I need time." "You can't run from this, Michael," his mother said gently. "Clara is your future, and she needs you. Don't let fear make the decision for you. Go to her. Talk to her." Michael sat in silence, the weight of his mother's words pressing down on him. His heart ached for Clara. He had never seen her like this, so distant, so withdrawn. He didn't understand what was happening, but he knew one thing for sure, he couldn't just walk away. Confronting the truth. Back in the hospital, Clara stared at the ceiling, lost in thought. Her mother had left to give her some space, but Clara wasn't sure if that was a good thing. The silence in the room felt suffocating. She wanted to leave, to run away from everything. But she couldn't. She had to face the truth, no matter how painful. The truth was, she had been hiding something from Michael for years, a secret so dark that it threatened to destroy everything she had worked so hard to build. Clara closed her eyes and thought back to the day it all began. It had been a regular day, or so she thought. She had been working late, her mind focused on the project at hand. But when she received the message, everything changed. The message was from someone she never thought she'd hear from again. "Clara, I need to talk to you. It's important. I'm coming to see you." The message was from her past, someone who had known her before Michael, before the life she had carefully constructed. Someone who knew the real Clara, the one she had buried deep inside. Clara had tried to ignore the message, but the truth was, she couldn't. The past had come knocking, and no matter how hard she tried to deny it, it was impossible to escape. And now, the secret was on the verge of being exposed. Michael would know soon enough. He had to. It wasn't fair to him, to anyone, to keep hiding the truth. The meeting. Michael arrived at the hospital later that night. His heart was heavy as he walked down the sterile hallway, his footsteps echoing in the empty space. He reached Clara's room and stood outside for a moment, his hand hovering over the doorknob. He could hear her voice inside, but it was faint, muffled. He knocked softly and opened the door. Clara looked up, her eyes red from crying. Her face was pale, and the exhaustion was evident in the way she held herself. She had never looked so vulnerable. "Michael," she whispered, her voice barely audible. He didn't know what to say. His heart was torn between the love he still felt for her and the anger that had been building up ever since her collapse. "I'm so sorry," Clara said, her voice trembling. "I never meant for any of this to happen. I wanted to tell you, but I was afraid. Afraid of losing you. Afraid of what you'd think of me." Michael's heart skipped a beat. "Clara, what are you talking about? What's going on?" Clara took a deep breath and looked into his eyes. "I've been hiding something. Something from my past. And it's catching up with me. You deserve to know the truth." Michael's mind raced. He didn't know if he was ready to hear whatever she was about to say. But there was no turning back now. Clara closed her eyes for a moment before speaking again. "I'm not who you think I am. The woman you've fallen in love with isn't the real me. I've been hiding a secret that I can't keep from you any longer." Michael's heart sank. "What do you mean, Clara? What secret?" Her voice cracked. "I've been running from my past for so long, Michael. I never thought I'd have to face it again. But now, it's all coming back. And I'm terrified of what it means for us." The revelation had been just the beginning. As Michael stood there, listening to Clara's confession, he realized this was far from over. The truth she was about to tell him would change everything. And the road ahead would be filled with challenges neither of them were prepared for. The silence in Clara's hospital room seemed endless. Michael stood there, his hand gripping the doorframe, unsure of what to do next. His mind was a tangle of confusion and anger. Clara had just told him that she wasn't who he thought she was. The woman he had fallen in love with, the woman he was about to marry, she had been hiding something. A secret so deep that even he could not comprehend what it meant for their future. Clara had broken down, unable to hold back the tears anymore. The pain on her face was evident. She looked at him, her eyes pleading for understanding. But Michael wasn't sure if he could offer that. Not after everything. He didn't know if he even had the strength to look at her the same way. "Clara, you're scaring me," Michael finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. He felt his chest tighten as the words slipped out, the weight of her confession bearing down on him. She wiped away a tear, trying to compose herself. "I never wanted to hurt you, Michael. But I don't know how to explain it, how to make you understand. I need answers, Clara," Michael said, his frustration creeping into his voice. "I need to know what you've been hiding. What's going on?" Clara nodded, taking a deep breath. She sat up slightly in the hospital bed, the weight of her emotions making her feel smaller than she had ever felt before. "I was afraid you'd leave me," she said softly. "I've been running from my past for so long, I didn't know how to face it. And now it's all falling apart." Michael remained silent, waiting for her to continue. He needed to hear the whole story, to understand the truth, no matter how painful it might be. "Before I met you," Clara began, her voice trembling, "I lived a completely different life. I was involved with people, dangerous people, who I thought I could escape from. But when I met you, Michael, everything changed. You gave me something I thought I could never have, peace. And I tried to bury everything from my past, thinking I could start over." She paused, her hands shaking as she clasped them together. "But when my past came knocking, I didn't know what to do. The truth about who I really am, what I've done, it's too much for you to handle." Michael leaned against the wall, trying to process her words. "Clara, I love you," he said slowly. "I don't care about your past. What matters is now, what we have together. But you have to tell me everything. I can't just live in the dark." She closed her eyes, as if bracing herself for what she was about to reveal. "My real name isn't Clara. It's Olivia. And the life I ran from, it's one I can't outrun anymore. the past comes back. Olivia's story began years ago, in a life far different from the one Michael knew. She had grown up in a wealthy family, surrounded by power and influence. Her parents were well-known figures in their community, but their power came at a price. They were part of a network that dealt with shady dealings, blackmail, corruption, and even criminal activities that stretched across the globe. At a young age, Olivia had been groomed to be part of this world. Her father had always been strict, pushing her into the high society she didn't want to be a part of. But Olivia had always felt out of place in that world. The lies, the deceit, it made her sick. As she grew older, she began to push back, trying to escape the life her parents had planned for her. I was just a pawn in their game, Olivia continued, her voice cracking. They used me. They wanted me to marry into another powerful family to solidify their position. But I couldn't do it. I wanted out. I wanted a different life. So, I left. She paused, her eyes filled with regret. That's when I met him, the man I thought would change everything. He promised me a way out. He told me I could escape everything, that I could be free. I believed him. But he had his own agenda. And when I realized that, it was too late. Michael's stomach churned. Who was he? What did he want from you? Olivia looked away, unable to meet his gaze. He was a part of the organization my family was involved with. He used me to get closer to my father, to manipulate him. And when I found out, I tried to run, but I couldn't. They found me. Michael was stunned. He could hardly process what she was saying. The woman he loved, the one who seemed so gentle, so perfect, had been living in a world of deceit and danger. But what had this all meant for them? Could they really have a future if this was her past? I left everything behind when I met you, Michael, Olivia continued. I changed my name, my life. I thought I could leave it all behind, start fresh. And I did, until now. She finally met his eyes, the truth pouring from her like an open wound. I'm being hunted, Michael. They've found me. And they're not going to stop until they get what they want. The hunt begins. Michael felt a chill run down his spine. He hadn't realized the depths of danger Olivia had been in, or the consequences of her past. But now that he knew, he had to protect her, no matter what. You're not alone in this, Olivia, Michael said firmly. I'm here. I'll help you. We'll face this together. She shook her head, her eyes filled with fear. I don't want you to get caught up in this. You don't know what they're capable of. You don't know who they are. They'll hurt you to get to me. I don't care, Michael replied, his voice steady. You mean everything to me. We'll get through this. Together. But even as he spoke, Michael could see the doubt in Olivia's eyes. She knew that the world she had tried to escape from was dangerous, dangerous enough to pull anyone down into its darkness. And as much as Michael wanted to protect her, he knew that the real danger was just beginning. The next morning, Michael helped Olivia get dressed and ready to leave the hospital. She needed to rest, but she couldn't stay there. Not with the threat looming over them. They decided to go to a remote cabin in the mountains, a place where they could hide, at least for a while. It wasn't perfect, but it was safe for now. As they drove out of the city, Olivia's mind raced. She had been running from her past for so long, but now, it had caught up with her in a way she never expected. Do you think they'll find us? Olivia asked, her voice trembling. Michael glanced at her. We'll be ready. We'll stay one step ahead of them. But as they reached the cabin, something didn't feel right. The quiet, the stillness, it was too calm. Michael could sense the tension in the air, the feeling that something was lurking just beyond their reach. Suddenly, the silence was broken by the sound of tires crunching on gravel. Michael's heart skipped a beat. He grabbed Olivia's arm and pulled her inside the cabin, locking the door behind them. He peered out through the small window, his pulse racing. A black SUV was parked in the driveway. Two men stepped out, their movements deliberate, their faces hidden by dark sunglasses. "They found us," Olivia whispered, panic rising in her chest. Michael didn't waste any time. He grabbed the keys to the car and motioned for Olivia to follow him. "We need to leave. Now." But as they stepped outside, a voice called out from the shadows. "There's nowhere to run, Olivia." The man's voice was cold, calculating. Michael turned, his eyes narrowing. A figure stepped into the light, and Olivia gasped. It was him. The man from her past. The one who had promised her freedom. The one who had betrayed her. The tension in the air was thick, suffocating, as Michael and Olivia stood in front of the cabin, the ominous figure of her past now fully revealed. Michael's pulse raced, and his mind scrambled for a plan. The man who had once promised Olivia freedom, only to betray her and drag her back into the dangerous web of lies, was standing right in front of them. "Olivia," the man said, his voice smooth but with a hint of menace. "You didn't think you could run forever, did you?" Michael's protective instinct surged. He stepped forward, placing himself between Olivia and the man, his body tense and ready for whatever might come next. "Who are you?" Michael demanded, trying to steady his breath. He didn't care who this man was, only that he wasn't going to let him hurt Olivia. The man chuckled, his eyes dark with a knowing gleam. "You really have no idea what you're up against, do you?" He took a step forward, his gaze never leaving Olivia. "You think you can just disappear? You think I'm going to let you live this life of peace and happiness? You're mine, Olivia. You always will be." Michael's hands clenched into fists, but Olivia grabbed his arm, stopping him from taking another step. She knew better than anyone what this man was capable of, and right now, anger would only make things worse. "Michael," Olivia said, her voice trembling but firm. "You don't understand. He's not just any man. He's a part of something far bigger than you realize. Something dangerous." Michael turned to look at her, his expression a mix of confusion and disbelief. "What are you talking about? Who is he?" The man smirked, clearly enjoying the confusion he had caused. "I'm a businessman, Michael," he said, his tone dripping with arrogance. "I make deals, and people like Olivia, well, they're useful tools. She was never meant to escape. She was never meant to get away. She belongs to me, to us." Michael felt the blood drain from his face as the man's words hit him like a ton of bricks. "What do you mean, she belongs to you? She's not anyone's property." The man's smile only widened, and he took another step forward. "That's where you're wrong, my friend. She's been part of our plans for a long time. The only reason you're standing here, questioning me, is because you don't know what she's really been running from." Olivia closed her eyes for a moment, as if bracing herself for what was coming. She knew the time had come to tell Michael everything that had led her to this moment. The man before them was just a pawn in a much larger game, but his presence meant that there was no turning back. "Michael," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I have to tell you everything. A life of lies and power." Olivia took a deep breath and began to recount the darkest chapters of her life, the moments she had tried so hard to bury. "When I was younger, my family was deeply involved in things I could never have imagined. My father was the head of a powerful syndicate, a network of corrupt businessmen, politicians, and criminals. They controlled everything, from the economy to the black market. My mother was the brains behind it all, using her charm and manipulation to get what they wanted." Michael's heart pounded as he listened, unable to comprehend the life she had lived. He had always seen her as the woman who wanted a fresh start, the woman who had given him hope for a better life. But now, everything had been a lie. "I hated it," Olivia continued. "I hated every single thing about it. I wanted out. I wanted to be free. But they wouldn't let me go. I was always a pawn, just like my mother had been. They controlled my every move, and when I turned 18, they decided it was time to marry me off to another powerful family to cement their position." Michael clenched his jaw, the injustice of it all making his blood boil. So, you ran away? Olivia nodded, her eyes haunted by the memories. Yes, but not before they did something unforgivable. They tried to force me into marrying a man I didn't love, a man who was just as twisted as they were. And when I refused, they punished me. They locked me in a room for days, kept me from leaving. I thought I was going to lose everything. Her voice trembled, but she pressed on. That's when I met him. The man standing in front of us. He was a part of the syndicate, but he promised me freedom. He told me I could escape. He told me he'd protect me. I thought he was my savior. Michael felt a wave of nausea hit him as he heard Olivia's confession. The man who stood before them, the man who had betrayed her, had manipulated her into believing that he was her only hope. He had played on her vulnerabilities and led her straight into a trap. I don't know why I was so stupid, Olivia whispered, her hands trembling in her lap. He was always a part of the syndicate. But when I found out, it was too late. I tried to leave, but he wouldn't let me go. He made it clear that I had no choice, that I was his property, his tool to use whenever he needed me. The weight of her words hung in the air, suffocating Michael. His mind raced, trying to process everything she had just revealed. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized how deep this went. Olivia had been trapped, not just by this man, but by an entire network of corruption and power. And now, they were both trapped in it, with no way out. The choice. The man, who had been standing silently throughout Olivia's story, finally spoke again, his voice cold and unyielding. I gave you a chance, Olivia. I let you think you could escape. But now you're back. You're mine again. And there's nothing you or your little friend can do about it. Michael's anger surged. He stepped forward, his fists clenched. You're not taking her anywhere. Not after what you've done. The man's eyes flashed with amusement. You think you can stop me? You think you can fight me? Michael didn't back down. I'll fight for her, no matter what it takes. For a moment, the man's smirk faltered, but then he chuckled darkly. You're a fool, Michael. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Olivia stepped forward, her eyes filled with determination. Michael's right. You can't control me anymore. You lost your hold on me a long time ago. I'm done being your pawn. The man's expression darkened, his lips curling into a snarl. We'll see about that, he growled. You can run, but you can't hide. I'll find you, Olivia. No matter where you go. Before Michael could react, the man turned and walked away, disappearing into the woods behind the cabin. Olivia's legs gave way beneath her, and she collapsed onto the ground, her body trembling with fear and exhaustion. Michael rushed to her side, kneeling beside her. Olivia, he whispered, his voice filled with concern. We'll figure this out. I promise. I'm not going anywhere. We'll take down whatever's in our way. Olivia looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and fear. I don't know how much longer we can run. This man, this organization, they'll never stop coming for me. Michael took her hand. His grip firm and reassuring. Then we'll stop them. Together. The cold night air cut through the trees, rustling the leaves as Michael and Olivia stood in the clearing behind the cabin, the weight of the moment pressing down on them. Their world had been turned upside down. The man, her former captor, had warned them that they would never be free. Yet, Olivia couldn't help but feel something stir within her, a faint flicker of hope. For the first time in years, she wasn't facing this alone. Michael's hand was still clutching hers, his warmth the only thing keeping the fear from consuming her. The world outside seemed to fall away as they stood there in silence, the full scope of what was happening slowly sinking in. Olivia had been living under the shadow of that man and the dark network he represented for far too long. She had run, fought, and escaped, only to find herself thrust back into the nightmare she thought she had left behind. But Michael, for all his strength, was not prepared for the storm that was coming their way. He looked at her now, his face full of resolve. We need a plan. He won't stop coming after you. Olivia nodded, her mind racing. I know. But we can't keep running. They'll track us down, wherever we go. This man, he's not just a threat to me, he's dangerous to anyone I care about. Her voice quivered, but she forced herself to continue. And now that you're involved, Michael, you're in danger too. Michael shook his head, his expression firm. I'm not going anywhere. I'm with you, whatever it takes. But deep down, Olivia knew that wasn't enough. The syndicate was everywhere. They had eyes and ears in every corner of the world. Trying to hide would only give them more time to tighten their grip. The only way out was to face them head-on, but that path was fraught with danger. One wrong move, and everything would come crashing down. There was no time to waste. The man who had come to their cabin wasn't just a messenger. He was a warning. And Olivia had no illusions about what would happen next. It was only a matter of time before the full force of the syndicate came after her, and this time, they wouldn't stop until she was back under their control. A dark network. Olivia had known for years that the syndicate was vast and powerful, but she hadn't fully understood the extent of their reach until now. She had grown up surrounded by the chaos they created, the lies they spun to cover their illegal dealings, and the fear that gripped everyone involved. Her father had been one of the leaders, a man who valued power above all else, and her mother had been his right hand, manipulating people with a smile that could melt ice. It wasn't just a criminal empire, it was a machine that kept grinding, pulling everyone in, whether they wanted to be there or not. And Olivia? She had been born into it. A pawn, raised to serve their needs. But somewhere along the way, she had learned to fight. She had seen enough of the darkness to know that there was no escaping it without consequences. So when she had finally made her escape, she had hoped that leaving it all behind would be enough. But now she understood that her past was like a shadow that never went away. Do you remember what I told you about the man who betrayed me? Olivia asked, her voice low, as she and Michael sat at the small kitchen table, a single lamp flickering overhead. Michael nodded, his face grim. You said he was part of a much bigger operation. Someone who had connections everywhere. Olivia sighed, leaning back in her chair. He's more than that. He's a key player in the syndicate. A man who was supposed to help me escape, but he's really a part of the system that kept me trapped. He controls a lot of the dirty work, the people who do the bidding for the higher-ups. When I tried to get out, he became the one who made sure I couldn't. Michael frowned. But why come after you now? If he's part of the syndicate, doesn't he have more important things to do? Olivia closed her eyes, trying to calm the storm of thoughts rushing through her mind. He's been watching me, Michael. The entire time. When I disappeared, they thought I was dead. But when I reappeared, he knew it was only a matter of time before I'd figure out the truth. Her words hung in the air like a heavy fog. The gravity of the situation was clear now. Olivia was right, hiding wouldn't work. They had to confront the syndicate head-on, but that meant going up against a force far more powerful than anything either of them had ever faced. The plan. The next few days passed in a blur of preparation. Michael and Olivia kept to themselves, staying in the cabin and avoiding contact with the outside world as much as possible. They knew it was only a matter of time before the syndicate found them, and when they did, Olivia wasn't about to go down without a fight. Michael set up a few defenses around the cabin, trying to make sure they weren't caught off guard. But Olivia knew that even with the best preparations, the odds were stacked against them. The syndicate wasn't going to make it easy for her to escape again. We can't keep hiding, Olivia said one evening, after another long day of planning. I've been running for years. They've found me time and time again. And they won't stop until they've dragged me back. Michael nodded, his face grim. Then we need to turn the tables. If we want to stand a chance, we need to hit them where it hurts. Olivia looked at him, her eyes sharp. What do you mean? Michael leaned forward, his expression focused. We need to go after the heart of the syndicate. The leaders. If we can expose them, take away their power, we can cripple everything they've built. It was a risky plan. One that could end with them dead or worse. But Olivia couldn't deny the spark of hope that ignited within her. For the first time since her escape, she felt like they had a chance. "We'll need allies," Olivia said, her voice steady. "I can't do this alone, and neither can you. The syndicate is too powerful." Michael met her gaze, and for the first time, Olivia saw something in his eyes, something more than just love or determination. She saw understanding. He had known from the beginning that this fight wasn't just about her. It was about both of them. And whatever they had to do, they would do it together. The first move. Olivia spent the next few days reaching out to old contacts, those who had escaped the syndicate or who had information that could help them. It was a dangerous game, each call, each message could be a trap. But Olivia wasn't afraid anymore. She had survived the worst of it, and now, she was ready to strike back. The first contact she reached was a former associate, a man who had been a part of the syndicate's operations before he'd managed to slip away. He had information, valuable information, that could help them take down the syndicate's leadership. But he was scared, cautious, unwilling to trust anyone. "I can't be seen talking to you, Olivia," he told her over the phone, his voice shaky. "You don't understand. The syndicate is everywhere. They'll kill me if they find out." "I'm not asking you to come out in the open," Olivia replied, her voice calm but firm. "I just need information. If you can help me, I'll make sure you're safe." There was a long pause, and for a moment, Olivia thought he might hang up on her. Then, finally, he spoke again. "All right, I'll help you. But you need to be careful. The syndicate's reach is longer than you think. They've got people everywhere. And the one you're after, the man who betrayed you, he's not the only one. There are others, higher up. People you don't even know." Olivia's heart sank. She had suspected as much. The man who had come after her wasn't the only threat. There were others, far more dangerous, lurking in the shadows. The Trap Titans. That night, Michael and Olivia sat by the fire, talking through their next steps. They were ready to make their move, but they also knew that it was a risk. The syndicate wouldn't let them off so easily. They would come after them, no matter what. Suddenly, a knock at the door interrupted their conversation. Michael jumped to his feet, his instincts kicking in. But Olivia stopped him, holding up her hand. "Stay calm," she whispered. The knock came again, more insistent this time. Michael hesitated, then cautiously walked to the door. He peered through the crack, his eyes narrowing. It was a woman, a stranger, standing on the other side. She was dressed in dark clothes, her eyes hidden behind a pair of sunglasses. Her posture was tense, like she was trying to stay out of sight. "I'm here for Olivia," she said, her voice low but urgent. "I have information that can help you." Michael's heart raced. Was this a trap? Or was this someone who could actually help them? Olivia stepped forward. Her eyes wary but hopeful. "Who are you?" she asked. "I'm someone who can get you the information you need," the woman replied. "But you need to trust me." Without hesitation, Michael stepped aside, letting the woman into the cabin. They didn't have many options left. And right now, every bit of information counted. The night was thick with tension as Olivia and Michael sat in the small, dimly lit cabin. Outside, the wind howled, making the trees sway like eerie silhouettes. But inside, it was as if the world had frozen. The woman at the door had introduced herself as Sarah, but something about her didn't feel entirely right. Her cold, calculating eyes were too sharp, too observant. Every movement seemed measured, deliberate. Michael stood across the room, his gaze fixed on Sarah. Olivia sat next to the fire, the warmth of the flames barely touching the chill in her bones. She wanted to trust this woman, she needed to, but her instincts screamed that there was something more at play here, something she couldn't quite grasp. "I don't know if we should trust her," Michael said quietly, his voice low enough for only Olivia to hear. Olivia turned to him, her expression weary. She knew what he meant. They had already been betrayed once, and they couldn't afford to make the same mistake again. But then, the faint glimmer of hope flickered again. Sarah had come here with a purpose. She claimed to have information that could bring the syndicate to its knees. And right now, that was the only thing that mattered. "We have no choice," Olivia replied, her voice firm but filled with uncertainty. "If she's lying, we'll deal with it. But if she's telling the truth, this might be our chance." Sarah watched them silently from across the room. Her lips were pressed into a thin line, as if she knew they were sizing her up. But she didn't seem offended. If anything, she looked more like a woman accustomed to being under scrutiny. "I understand your hesitation," Sarah said after a long pause. "But I'm not here to waste your time. I've seen the way the syndicate operates, and I know how they work. I can help you take them down." Olivia studied her for a moment, wondering if there was a way to read her, to gauge her sincerity. But it was like looking at a wall. The woman was good, too good at hiding her true intentions. "Then what's the catch?" Michael asked, his voice hard, blunt. Sarah's eyes flickered to Olivia, and for a moment, there was a strange understanding between them. "No catch," Sarah said. "But you need to understand one thing, this isn't going to be easy. The syndicate isn't just an organization. It's a web of influence, and to bring it down, you'll have to start at the very core." Olivia leaned forward, her heartbeat quickening. "And where do we start?" Sarah nodded, taking a deep breath. "The man who betrayed you, he's not just a part of the syndicate. He's the one who controls the flow of information. If you take him out, you disrupt their communication. You cripple their ability to control people." Michael's eyes narrowed. "But we've already tried going after him. He's too well protected." Sarah's lips curved slightly, but it wasn't a smile. "You've been approaching it all wrong. You can't just confront him directly. You need to play the game. You need to make him think you're still running, that you're still hiding. You need to lure him into a trap." Olivia's mind raced. The pieces were starting to fall into place. If they could trick him into thinking he still had control, they might be able to corner him. But the risk, it was enormous. They were playing a dangerous game, and if they made even one mistake, it could cost them everything. "We don't have much time," Sarah continued. "I can help you get close to him, but you need to trust me. And once we're in, we can bring everything crashing down." Olivia exchanged a glance with Michael. She could see the doubt in his eyes, but there was something else there now, a quiet resolve. He knew what needed to be done, even if it meant putting themselves in harm's way once again. "Let's do it," Michael said, his voice steady, as he turned back to face Sarah. "But if this goes south, we'll have no one to blame but ourselves." Sarah nodded once. "Agreed. The plan unfolds." Over the next few days, Olivia and Michael worked with Sarah to set the trap. Sarah provided them with a network of contacts, people who had once been part of the syndicate but had managed to escape. Through these connections, they learned more about the inner workings of the syndicate and the various individuals who held the power. But even with all the information Sarah provided, it became clear to Olivia that the man they were after was not just some simple criminal. He was a mastermind, a puppet master who had orchestrated every move in the game. They spent hours going over every detail, preparing for the moment they would set the trap. They knew the risks. The syndicate had eyes everywhere, and they would be watching for any sign of weakness. But Sarah's plan was simple yet brilliant. They would use Olivia as bait, make the syndicate think she was still running, still afraid, still under their control. Once they had lured the man into a false sense of security, they would strike. Olivia hated the idea of playing the part of the victim again, but she knew there was no other way. The man had to think he had won, only then could they catch him off guard. As the day of the plan approached, the tension in the cabin grew. The air seemed thick with anticipation. Michael could hardly sit still, pacing around the room as he went over every detail one more time. "You're sure about this?" he asked Olivia for what felt like the 100th time. His face was pale, his eyes shadowed with concern. Olivia stood by the window, looking out at the forest that surrounded them. I don't have a choice, Michael. If I don't do this, we'll never be free. The syndicate won't stop until they have me back. And they'll come after you, too. Michael took a step closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. We'll get through this. We have to. She nodded, though her heart was heavy. It wasn't just about escaping anymore. It was about taking down the entire system that had kept her trapped for so long. It was about showing the world that people like her didn't have to be victims. The trap closes in. The night they put their plan into action, Olivia felt her stomach twist in knots. They had everything set. They had carefully planted evidence to make it look like she was on the run again, and they had sent messages to the syndicate's top operatives, making sure the man who had betrayed her would get word that she was still alive and vulnerable. But as the hours passed, and the trap began to tighten around them, Olivia's heart pounded in her chest. She couldn't help but wonder if it would all fall apart. What if they were wrong? What if the syndicate already knew they were playing a game? Suddenly, a knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. It was time.